All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to Daily Update of my 1000 Days Challenge. This is day 379, so let's get things started. All right, so first and foremost, you'll see the increase in balance again for the experimental trade setup. So that's basically the close of trade for both MyLink and also one of the Ethereum itself. So currently for experimental trade setup, I'm still in terms of long setup for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. So do bear in mind that like what I mentioned right now, earlier this morning or in the midnight wise, we actually break out to higher high once again. So even though there is a possibility that we'll have a strong retracement towards the downside, it's very hard for anyone to say for certain when that will take place. So whenever it's in a clear bullish trend, I'll just be entering on long side kind of trade. So yeah, in terms of market structure updates, today is Saturday. Going in terms of the weekly market structure update itself, the US market still tentatively looks to be strong, even though how far it can climb is anybody guess. You can look over here whereby we do see that there would be potential drawback and a pullback. And in fact, it didn't really have a strong pullback to below even the 20 exponential moving average on the weekly chart itself. But bearing in mind that even though we are having reduced momentum, it can also take some time before the retracement take place. And even when the retracement does take place, it may already be higher than what you're purchasing over here just as well. So that's something to always bear in mind. So moving on over to Nasdaq, same thing we are happening. We are still very much above the 20 exponential moving average on the weekly chart and still looks to be strong. And similarly, on the flip side, on the China market side of things, definitely is looking a little bit more bearish. But if you look in terms of ASHR wise, it's actually not as bearish on the weekly chart basis. So yes, even though we are making distinctively lower highs and lower lows, but do bear in mind that as long as we are consolidating within near this region, above the $38 region itself, because we actually break below it the week before and now we are above it once again. So as long as we stay above it, we still have a chance that we can break up towards the upside, and tentatively that will still be a bullish kind of sign, simply because that just because these signals have a tendency of bearish bias does not necessarily mean that it has to break towards the downside. All right, so on the other hand, for KBAC, it's definitely bearish, but like what I mentioned, you can see that this trend line, upslope trend line, has been very supportive for 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times for the past year since 2018 itself. So definitely we do have some bounce over here, a very good sign. But do bear in mind that if you look in terms of the weekly candlestick itself, over here we stay only 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and another 2 weeks. So over here we already stay 3 weeks, so it's tentatively a little bit more bearish. But bearing in mind that as long as you do not break below it, then I will still remain to the bullish side of things that this could still be the bottom of it. And even if we do go towards the lower, we could still form a triple bottom or even a quadruple bottom over here itself before nice bounce can take place. So that's something to bear in mind. But definitely, if you're adding over here, your upside is definitely still there. And even if you're talking about downside itself, even if we do fall over here, it's still only another 12 to 13% lower than what your entry points would be. And if we look in terms of a longer term perspective itself, ever since it started, even if we fall all the way below to where it was started in 2014, you will still be facing only another further 50% drop, which is not as bad as what you have get if you have bought way at the top over here. So for me right now, I'm definitely in a loss for KBAC, but that doesn't mean I'm selling it off. I'm going to add a little bit more position if we do come below here, or if we do break up towards the upside, then I'll consider adding just as well. So yep, and finally moving for Bitcoin itself. So do bear in mind that ever since we formed the potential bottom for midterm itself, we are going up all the way quite parabolic in that sense. And even though it's green, volume-wise is there, but it's not strong in that sense. And this week, by tomorrow, we actually close above the 20 exponential moving average. On both the simple and exponential moving average is definitely a very good sign. But do bear in mind that the volume itself is not looking extremely convincing itself. So that's something to bear in mind. But do check a couple of exchanges. But from what I gather in the sentiment in terms of Binance or Bitstamp itself, the volume does not look extremely convincing. Not to say that it's false, but basically it could be a fact that investors are a little bit more cautious, especially when we've been at week 3 or currently going to be the 4th consecutive week that we are going towards the upside, and quite distinctively in terms of percentage wise. Because if you look from all the way to the bottom to currently where we are now, we are actually 63% up from the bottom of around 28 or 29,000 region itself. So that is something that there could be a pullback, and even if the pullback does take place, it is not necessarily going to be extremely bearish, simply because we have climbed quite a long way itself. All right, so looking on the daily chart is actually a very nice sign that we actually push towards the upside, even though I did say that we could potentially have a retracement. And we do towards the upside, like what I mentioned. How I could do the extension is doing over here, toward the bottom itself. You can see that previously we hit the first one, which is the 46,000 region. And now I see the second candlestick I hit very nicely near the 48,000 region itself. So if we do consolidate right here again, there's a very nice likelihood that we could hit this 50 to 51,000 region itself, in which case it could really be a retracement or time for retracement for Bitcoin. And even then, this could be the first wave, this is the second wave, and this will be the, let me just draw it out, it may be clearer. All right, so what I'm guessing, like I said, when it comes to Fibonacci retracement and wave, is definitely anybody guess itself. So we do have a retracement somewhat like this, and then this could potentially be forming the fifth wave itself to somewhere along the 60,000 mark again. But do bear in mind that if we actually do form such a wave itself, then the wave 3 would look relatively weak, in which case then the wave 5 would most likely be even weaker, which is not a good sign. But if we actually do break towards strongly towards the upside, then there will be a much better signal itself, but we could have a deeper retracement before we go up towards the upside. So is anybody guess? So I'm not going to draw this Fibonacci wave just yet, Elliott wave theory just yet, simply because looking at this current wave structure itself, still not very clear to me, and it wouldn't be very much of a meaningful, it would just be a very, just be a random guess in my opinion right now. And looking on a more closely on, say, on the 4-hour chart is where you see that yesterday I did mention there was a potential breakout over here, and you have entered over here. To bear in mind that there will be key resistance at this 49 to 51K region itself, and I'll be very cautious to take profit. So for myself, I didn't manage to enter a breakout trade because I was waiting for further consolidation a little bit more, and potentially a small little false breakout before entering, putting a breakout trade there. So I failed to put that because it opened at around 4 a.m. It broke up above it even when I woke up in the morning at around 8 a.m.-ish. So that's something to bear in mind. So right now I'm looking for potential weak retest. So if a weak retest test at this 46.7K region itself, it will be a very good sign. I'll be very keen to add position into that. And I will be willing to put my stop loss slightly higher over here itself, using this as a swing low itself. And this will be a 1:1.3 kind of risk to reward setup. Bearing in mind that if it hits anywhere near there, I'll be very keen to at least take partial profit or move my stop loss to break even itself. So this is a very extremely higher risk kind of trade, simply because the risk to reward is higher, and also because we are very much nearing the key resistance level on the daily and on the weekly level itself. All right, so with that said, the remaining trade itself over here is open. I will move it from this 50 simple moving average to 20 exponential moving average, simply because I do see that the funding rate on the futures are spiking up a little bit on the altcoins itself. So it does go to show the market is slightly overheated, and there could be too many longs in the market that we could see some liquidation, in the sense that we could see some drop before or cool down before we actually continue towards the upside. So yep, so with that said, I've come to the end of today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop by your comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.